Hi, Democrats. Today is Thursday, October 6th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Life. Happy Thursday. Happy birthday, Logan. Happy anniversary, Angelique. Got to get in my own little personal things. So, a lot to talk about today. As you know, I try to stick to talking about local things, but every once in a while, I feel like I need to expand it and talk about federal things just so you guys know that I am paying attention. So, everybody's talking about Herschel Walker whew, and the hot mess that he is. So I'm acknowledging Herschel Walker is a hot mess, and I'm glad he's not running in Oklahoma. I don't want to talk about too much of that because it disgusts me that the Republicans are circling the wagons around him and protecting him and supporting him, even though everything that has come out this week, and I don't want to say that we learned this week because I don't football, but I knew him to be an ex-football player who had gotten in trouble for domestic violence. That made him a no-go for me. Should have made him a no-go for a lot of folks. But let's say we believe in redemption. The problem is that his behavior hadn't changed. And yet they still picked him. They are still supporting him. And that tells you that it's a win at all costs kind of situation. And it's disgusting. So I've now said something about Herschel Walker. All righty. Then I just wonder what happened to small government Republicans, because that's what they say they are, and they just keep creeping and creeping and creeping more into managing our lives and trying to take over our lives. Which brings me to the special session in Oklahoma of last week. So they were in session, let's call it a total of 8 hours. A little bit on one day, and then the next day they were in session for about 7 hours, and more than two. And their whole goal was to identify how we were going to spend the American Rescue Plan dollars, or ARPA funds. That's money given to us from the federal government to help us through COVID, to help us overcome the things that set us back due to COVID. We were just banking the money and weren't using it. So there was a special session that was dedicated to spending that money in ways that should have been designed to help Oklahomans. So they did a lot of good things. They dealt with food deserts. They dealt with some of our crumbling airport infrastructure. They dealt with some healthcare. So there were some good things that happened out of that session. But what everybody's talking about, because it is a big deal, is the hours. More than 2 hours were spent talking about restricting or getting in the way, talking about Oklahoma government getting in the way between a parent, the child, and their doctor regarding gender confirming healthcare. Just plain old gender confirming health.
Well, folks, it's Scott Hamilton. I'm going to jump in. Alicia's having some technical difficulty, and I know that she'll be back on with us just as quickly as she possibly can. But the point that she was making is this special session, they devoted so much time and negative energy to literally stepping in to our lives in a very fundamental way, because as much as we've heard about parental rights in education, parental rights here, we should let parents decide what's best for their children. And now all of a sudden, the legislature doesn't believe that parents are wise enough to do that when it comes to their own child's health care. The current governor is going on every single fringe podcast that will have him talking about how we must protect our children. Well, first of all, trans kids are far, far greater suicide risks than any other category of human being. These young people are watching what's happening in their state leaders who are literally saying that they can't decide with their parents, with their doctor, what their medical treatment should be. And so the legislature decided that they would stop funding OU Medical Center entirely as long as OU kept providing care for transgender young people. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not you know any transgender people or what your views on them are. What you should be concerned about, what I'm concerned about, is if our government can take this position with healthcare of one group, believe me, they can take care of all of us in ways that they think is right. They've already said women are simply not smart enough to make their own decisions when it comes to their health care. And now they're saying parents aren't smart enough to be able to take care of their own children's health care. That's nonsense. We're at a point now where we can no longer allow bullies, bigots, and billionaires to say how we live, to choose what we can and cannot do. It's a great shame that not only are trans kids being targeted here, but any child who sees themselves differently will be pushed further and further to the margins of society. And so the fact that they spent that much time debating this issue and talking this issue and threatening to withhold millions of dollars is inexcusable. Okay, Alicia's back and I'm back out.
All righty. I don't know what's happening. AT&T does not want me to do my live every day. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened in the special session, because I wanted to highlight the fact that it is very important that we focus on our local races, our state legislative races, because a lot of these issues are being shoved down to our state legislature, and it's important that we have folks who are going to fight for everyone. And to that end, I'd like to invite Blake Aguirre, who is running for State Senate District 22, to join me. Hey, Blake, did I say your name right this time?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. So you're running for State Senate District 22.
Yes.
Where is that?
So while I was in backstage, I kind of thought it'd be easier to pull up the map because 22 is weirdly shaped. Let me pull my camera down a little bit. And so over here in Edmond, the north boundary is Waterloo Road that goes into, hopefully I pronounce it right, may not, Azila Road over in the Piedmont area. Over here is going to be Gregory Road Northwest. And then over here to the south boundary for Yukon, it's going to be West Britain Road, curving a little into OKC, which is right in this area. And it would go into Boardwalk Boulevard over to the Rockwell Northwest Expressway area, curving into North County Line Road back over into Edmond, which would be West Edmond Road.
So I heard Edmond, Yukon, Piedmont, Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Okay, so those are some diverse areas, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what made you run?
A little bit of everything. So since I am running as an openly gay Latino candidate, with Trump portraying Mexican immigrants coming into the country as drug dealers, rapists, and criminals, I just thought to myself, you're trying to take the highest seat in the land and you're going to end up representing part of my community. And I was like, we can't have a leader that's going to be portraying individuals like that. We need to be coming together and not hating one another. And then in 2020, since my mom is a cancer patient, she ended up losing her job. And you know how cancer is considered a pre-existing health condition. The insurance that my dad had through his company wasn't going to insure my mom. And so we couldn't afford her health medication as well as her cancer medication. And I was an intern for a state representative during the pandemic in 2020. And I was also a fellow for Kendra Horn's reelection campaign. Well, she tried to call Representative Ryan Martinez's office since he took over unemployment during that time. Did not get a response. I heard from another state representative that they ended up getting phone calls from constituents that weren't even theirs because Martinez's office was not answering the phone call. I didn't think that was right. And so she had to talk to the governor's office because that's who unemployment told her to talk to. Well, governor's office said, well, there's nothing we can do. And so I talked to the state representative that I interned for and Kendra Horn's people, got them involved, and Amanda, who was the deputy chief at the time for Kendra Horn, And within 24 hours, we got a phone call from a supervisor from unemployment. And I was like, I'm doing a state rep's job and I'm not even a state rep. And so that's how I started to get involved and decided to run. But now I switched over from wanting to run for House District 39 to running for Senate District 22.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And I one of the reasons that I'm interested in your campaign, I've been watching your campaign because I think it's important that we have representation that looks like all of Oklahoma. And I'm proud to say that the candidates that are running for Democrats we're holding up our end on the diversity slate. And I think it's important when someone sees you, a very young Latino man from the LGBT community. Those are several different communities who can look to you and say, well, if Blake can run, why can't I run? Why am I not running?
Exactly.
Right. And so how are you feeling on the doors? Because every time I log on to Facebook, you're on the doors. How's that going?
It's going really well. I mean, I will get one or two, I call them bad doors when they're kind of mean. I'll get one or two bad doors per turf, but it's actually getting really good turnout. And I'm flipping some Republicans because Chantel Corey, who is helping out tremendously by cutting my turf, is including Republicans that haven't voted in the past 2 or 3 primaries for maybe they can be more persuadable. And just last night, I flipped a Republican and his wife was an independent. So it's going really good. And my opponent's not even knocking doors.
What are people talking about when you're knocking the doors?
Mainly education. They're mainly talking about how we don't need to have Walters get elected in November, which I completely agree. I talked to a teacher last night, especially, who was afraid that public education is going to end up going away if November election doesn't go how we expect it.
Well, they are absolutely working towards defunding education. And if we can connect on that issue on the doors, I think that helps us a lot.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So like I said, I'm focusing this week on state races, right? Because state legislative races and below, because there's a lot of focus on Joy and Gina and Kendra and Madison, which we absolutely need to focus on. But yes, a lot of decisions are made over there on Lincoln. And we need to make sure that we know who's running for those seats and we're helping them as much as we can. So every day I end my live when I ask everybody to go out and find a candidate or two to help. How could someone help you? How do they reach out to help you? And what kind of help do you need?
I definitely could use more knockers on the doors because I'm the only one in Edmond. And then I'll have about 4 or 5 from Canadian County Democrats knocking in the OKC area. So I could use more canvassers. I have a few drivers, but if someone doesn't feel comfortable going out on the doors, I would love to have them drive me. That's no problem at all. Me and Chantel actually started talking about mailers today because we're going to start sending out mailers here pretty soon, as well as getting a list for phone banking. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable driving because of the pandemic or being out on the doors, I could use them for phone banking or writing thank you cards to people who have been donating.
Awesome. So it looks like he gave a bunch of options, right? So if you are comfortable knocking doors, he needs your help. If you're not comfortable knocking doors, but you're comfortable being outside, he needs somebody to help drive either him or somebody else who's comfortable driving. If you're not comfortable doing that, but you have decent penmanship, help him write some thank you notes. If you're not comfortable doing that, make some phone calls. All of those things will go a long way towards getting the word out that Blake is on the ballot.
Yeah, because we have a good chance of flipping the seat since it's open now.
Okay, and it's really important right now. Don't wait until next week. Don't think that you have time because look what I got. I finally got my absentee ballot. So that means that folks have their ballots in hand right now. Right now is the time that we need to get out there and help as many candidates as we can. Say the candidates' names out loud so that people hear them because people vote for the name that they remember. For the people who aren't in it as much as we are, they vote for the name that they remember. So you need to if you're just walking in the grocery store in Blake's district, just say Blake Aguirre. So when they get that ballot box, they remember that they saw Blake's name. He needs to help. Drive him, drop lit. What about signs? You need help putting out signs?
If people would like to do that as well, yes.
You don't even necessarily have to talk to people to put out signs, and the weather is great. So help
Yes.
him drive, help him droplet, help him put out signs, phone bank, writing thank you notes. He needs all of that help. And it wouldn't hurt if you could throw him a couple of dollars. He also needs donations, because I heard him talk about a mailer, and mailers cost money, folks.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
For helping me with my cause of making sure that people understand who the candidates are that are running for our state legislature, because it is vitally important that we change who's representing us at the Capitol, and that we break up this one party domination so that we can get more common sense laws. Thanks for joining me. For everybody else, I appreciate you joining me. Again, educate yourself, educate everybody that you come in contact with, and help at least 10 people make a plan to vote. And I'll see you back here tomorrow at 4:15. Y'all have a good